Hey guys, what's going on? I just wanted to do a quick video on the MCS and severe thunderstorm event that moved through Mississippi, western Tennessee, and northwestern Alabama last night in the wee early morning hours on May 28, 2017. This is a map you can see pretty plainly where there were actually a couple of MCSs yesterday. One of them came down from central Missouri during the early afternoon hours and ended up doing some wind damage in Tennessee and then petering out in extreme northern Alabama around 9 or 10 o'clock last night. We had a few severe wind reports across northern Madison, Jackson, and DeKalb counties. And then after about 10:30, 11 o'clock, another MCS started forming across the Boot Heel, Missouri, and eastern Arkansas. And this one moved east-southeast with a significant cold pull and pushed down across western and northwestern Alabama by about 2 a.m. There was actually a 79-knot wind gust reported. I believe actually it was probably 79 miles an hour. I have to go back and check that report for sure, but near Coleman, Alabama. So that's this dot right here, this square black marker. So that's a very significant wind report, obviously. But I want to go into some of the kinematics and thermodynamics of what happened yesterday. And let's jump right on into that. As you can see, this is the surface-based CAPE projected for 2 a.m. 7Z. And there's a significant boundary that's draped here across northern Mississippi into northwestern Alabama. One of the most interesting things was this MCS, as it moved east, or really as it moved south from the Boot Heel, Missouri, it began to turn more easterly. And regenerative cells continued to go on the front end of that and spark new convection. Those are known as MBEs, or mesoscale beta elements. They're the actual heavy rain producing cells that are within the MCS itself. And one thing that was also interesting is it seemed to track along this CAPE gradient right here. I've read about that in the past, and possibly some of you have as well, but I thought that was really interesting, and that it seemed to regenerate and travel along east-southeast along this CAPE gradient that you see here from the Boot Heel, Missouri, east-southeast into northwestern Alabama. So we'll keep that in mind as we go through our analysis here. This is the 200 millibar heights and wind plot from Twister Data. It's one of my favorite websites to go and access data, look at charts from. Anyway, yeah, you can see where this wind shift line is right here at 200 millibars. See where the wind barbs go from out of the west-northwest or northwest to out of the west-southwest, right in through here. There's a boundary. And that's along that CAPE gradient as well, I suspect, as the MCS pushed east-southeast or southeast out of the mid-Mississippi Valley. But one of the most interesting things you can see here is it was actually, the MCS was progressing along the southern edge of the height fall gradient, or along the southern edge of the height gradient. And that's interesting to me because oftentimes, you know, we think of severe weather happening along the greatest height gradient, but this actually happened south of, which is fascinating. To try to anticipate future events. That's good knowledge to have. So yeah, it was along the southern edge of the height gradient, right in through here, through this wind shift boundary at 200 millibars. And of course we know storm motion was toward the east-southeast or southeast, about like this right here. So now I'll show you some theta E stuff. This is 850 millibar theta E. This is from research from the meteorological community, is well known to be associated with the track of MCSs, that MCSs tend to propagate toward the strongest or the highest theta E levels at 850 millibars. We studied this when we went on the pecan trip in Kansas and in the Central Plains back in 2015. We noticed this a lot, but obviously you can see that holds here too. The MCS propagated east-southeast out of western Tennessee, right through this area and toward this area of greatest theta E, right into northwestern Alabama. So keep that in mind for future MCS forecasts. There's not as much of a wind shift boundary there at 850, but you certainly have that nosing area of higher theta E right into the threat area in northwest Alabama where things really happened. You do have a nice little wind shift here depicted at 925 millibars on the storm relative wind profile. The plan view of storm relative winds at 925. Right in through here you can see that storm relative wind shift running from about just south of Corinth, Mississippi to about Coleman, Alabama. And that's right where things happen, so that's kind of interesting as well. This is 925 millibar heights in theta E. Again, you can see that wind shift right in through here. This is not the storm relative winds, just ground relative. But you can see the theta E is really nosing in and portrays that quite well right in through here, right along that wind shift. So that is very indicative. I personally did not look this far into the future on the model data charts last night. I stopped at about 10 o'clock and just watched everything evolve after that. And honestly, I was pretty surprised when that big MCS came down and moved into northwest Alabama and produced all those damaging wind and hail reports. But it was neat to go back and reanalysis, as all good meteorologists should do. I don't always do it myself, but it's good to do it, to go back and reanalysis and figure out, why it happened, the dynamical processes behind it, and was it predictable or not. That's one of the things I like to do. And you can see I'm using the 0Z wrap data for all this reanalysis work we're doing here. And it's good to, when doing reanalysis, to go back, gather the model data quickly, and see if the projected model data would have captured this event happening. And indeed, as we can see here, it did quite well with the juxtaposition of the theta E, low-level theta E, the height gradient that I showed you at 200 millibars, and the wind shift line along the boundary. So that's good detailed information for reanalysis in the future. Here's a comparison of storm motion on the left, again from the WRAP model, all these charts are. And then on the right, we have the surface-based CAPE chart again. And you can see, as I mentioned before, that the storm motion was out of the west-southwest, west-northwest, and it traveled right along this CAPE gradient. And as you know from dynamics, one of the requirements, or one of the things that is a strong pro for a damaging wind event, especially a long-lived one like a derecho or a bow echo, is that the echoes propagate along or parallel to the boundary. And so you get strong momentum transfer down to the surface more adequately than you would, obviously, if it were moving perpendicular to the boundary. So whenever you have a wave, an echo wave that's traveling along the boundary, you're going to have much greater momentum mixed down and a higher threat for damaging thunderstorm winds. So that's what happened here. I thought that was really cool. I wanted to show that to you. And actually, that's all I have. I wanted to keep it brief, but also informative. So thank you so much for watching. Y'all have a good day.